Download Whiskey Hell Podcast. We call attention to the mainstream media narratives weekly in hopes that you'll have fun with how ridiculous the news really is. We don't want to change your mind. We just want to give you perspective so that you can choose more wisely and be more aware. Couple that with great craft beer, hilarious stories, deep thoughts, and real conversations. We know you're going to enjoy it. Download Whiskey Hell Podcast anywhere you find outstanding shows.
You are listening to a Fonts Media Network production.
Welcome to this special edition of World Ablaze with yours truly, George Fonts. Today I have a couple of special guests with me to help me break down the 2024 presidential election debate. We focus on a few topics of concern. 1, the economy. 2, border security. 3, we discuss the controversial black jobs statement. And number 4, the January 6th Capitol riots. We offer verifiable facts to fact check this debate as it relates to the topics that we are discussing in this episode. We also offer insightful opinions, a bit of laughter, and there is even a bit of tension between us as we express our views. We appreciate you listening, and we hope that you enjoy this episode. Today, I have with me Rick Knowlton, who I call the political enthusiast / super researcher. Been around the block. He's also a military veteran. Don't hit the mic. Of course, that signals that my brother Manuel Fontes from the Stretchgoose Podcast is here.
I have to bump this thing at least 100 times per show.
No, I know it. And we don't have our usual broadcast mics today, so our voices will sound a little bit different. I know that Rick took notes. My brother is tired. And
I never take notes.
See?
So it doesn't matter.
So I got a surprise. I got a rider requirement fulfillment for my brother.
Did you honor the contract this time? I want 2 pounds. That's not even 2 pounds. You're a piece of shit.
Listen, asshole. They're M&Ms.
I almost bought a pack of them myself.
They're peanut butter M&Ms.
My favorite.
All right. Thank you, sir.
There.
Little pep for the step.
I'm
here.
addicted to those damn things.
Aren't they?
Are you really?
Especially the peanut butter ones, right?
Uh-huh.
See?
They're
2 pounds.
crazy.
A pound a person. That's the requirement for this deal. Does it pick it up? All right, good.
Now, with these mics, you kind of got to talk right into them because they're made for like live stage.
All right,
so
good.
They're
Then
really
I can
like directional.
totally make noise.
To a degree. All right, first, before we get going, I'll just get your general opinions of what you guys thought about the debate in general. And then I want to dive into specific questions and, we'll play those clips and see what you guys think. Hopefully, we'll do a little bit of fact checking. But in general, I'll ask Rick, what did you think of this debate in general as far as Trump versus Biden, how they handled themselves, and, just your thoughts on the debate?
I was looking forward to this debate for some time, and I had a lot of concerns about how it was going to be presented. And I was really surprised at in the way that it was presented. I was feeling that since these individuals that were asking the questions, I believe was a Trump hater to begin with. So we'll move on from there. I think that debate was, like I said, those concerns that I had, I was suspecting that they would do a lot of cutting off Trump's microphone. And the questions presented to Biden, I think, were surprising that they were so specific, knowing his issues with Alzheimer's. The first 15 minutes of this particular debate just showed how incognito Biden is, and that he no longer needs to be president of the United States. So
I would say that as far as the moderators with Jake Tapper and whatnot, basically I expect it to be way more anti-Trump, like more hard left leaning.
Yes,
a lot more interruptions, but I think they played as fair as they could, and I'm probably thinking they did because CNN's been getting kicked in the ass so much for just how they've been handling media and how they've been leaning when they do try to, I guess, report the news in big air quotes.
I think the ratings have a lot to do with that, and that's one of the reasons why they sold the broadcast rights to other networks so that they could generate more capital.
I agree,
this.
but remember the 2016 debate, they were very, very much more, you could see pro-Biden on that one.
Yes,
for this one, they were a lot more neutral.
Well, I think that's why they switched.
Yeah, they still threw their jabs, but it was nowhere near the way it was
Well, I think
before.
they were very sneaky in the question presentations, and they had a very a different way of presenting the questions. I think, for example, they avoided asking Biden questions or bringing up China.
Well, yeah, and they did avoid the Robert Hur report.
Yes,
that basically exposed him,
mm-hmm.
and that's that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
You know, how do you get all this evidence but deem you can't go ahead and prosecute him because he's not fit to stand trial because his memory's horrible and he can't recollect anything or even know where he is, but yet all this evidence is there against him? No, they didn't press him on that, didn't ask him. I think the timing of the questions were a little interesting too.
Well, I think that was all in Biden's favor, and I think they knew that, and that's why they didn't present any of these questions.
I also noticed where the rules were you were not supposed to have notes, right, or anything, but you can clearly see the whole time in the debate that Biden kept looking down at something, like he was
Biden
reading
did
something.
Have notes.
Absolutely, and Trump didn't. Yeah. And he also had a pin as things were going, and he was crossing out and writing things, which, according to the debate rules, you weren't supposed to do.
Yes, that's correct.
But didn't look like it helped him anyway. Manuel, what did you think?
In regards to the moderators and the whole CNN thing, I think it's very hard to support a guy when the ship is sinking. So once that happened, you start to slide away those questions and go, well, let's just keep this thing floating for the next 90 minutes. And whatever happens, happens. We're not going to press. We're not going to do anything to make us as a network sound dumber than we are.
Right.
And if he falls, he falls. And then we got plan B, which is what they're doing now, which is full-scale meltdown, crying, calling for the replacement.
Right.
I think they had two sets of things, which was if Biden doesn't look dead, which he did, if Biden doesn't lose his train of thought and he stays pretty, level, then you would have seen more mic cutting, you would have seen more attack. But the second Biden went, whee, then it was like, we got to save this fucking train somehow.
So in your opinion, they were forced to be neutral because they already know he was on the decline. I
don't think they wanted to sit there and start attacking Trump and then look like outright defending a guy.
Maybe that was a tactic they used to keep Trump from really tearing him apart. Like they didn't open the door for Trump to really go after him as they usually would by staying neutral.
What was it? The third question in, he loses his train of thought and he starts drooling. Then it's like, fuck, what do we do now? I
think there was times Biden looked like a robot that had like a glitch.
Exactly. Exactly. So what do you do as a network?
His eyes were so wide it looked like he was high on meth. I'm not saying he was, but he was definitely on something. And then all of a sudden it looked like he malfunctioned and he would just be looking off into space, not knowing where he is. Poor guy. I mean, you don't want to wish on anybody, but I don't have remorse because I think he's a traitor to the country, period. And it's going to come out. They have the evidence. The only reason they haven't gone after him is because if they do, it's going to expose everybody else as well. And the other reason they don't go after him is because at this point, we can't afford to look any worse to the rest of the world. They can't see America to look any worse. I mean, if it really comes out that our current president is a traitor and we prosecute him as a traitor and he gets the full extent of the law and justice as a traitor, we're going to lose even more credibility. So I think that's never really going to happen.
Well, we have the Department of Justice covering up for them, and obviously they've hidden a lot of information, kept a lot of information from the general public.
Yes, they did.
And as such, the House is still investigating it. They pretty well got all of their information and input together, and I think if hopefully Trump gets elected, then they will have enough people in the Senate as well as the House to prosecute Biden and expose They've also got a number of. They're taking the the head of the Department of Justice to court for refusing to turn over these documents. So I think within the next week or two, the court will make their decision on whether or not that information is going to be available for the House. And from all inside information, the court should render their decisions to the House.
So I don't think it's ever going to get there. Okay, here's why. before they get to that point, I guarantee all of this information is going to be super, super classified at a level that no one's going to be able to look at it. And when they try to actually release the documents, they'll be so redacted that's going to look like a giant Sharpie just went through every single page.
Well, I think a lot of the rhinos with the Republican Party have left the House, and a lot of Democrats are leaving if they haven't left already. So I think I disagree. I think that this is going to be pushed. No telling how far it will go, but there's court actions against the Department of Justice to release this information that they've occurred and hand over all these documents that they have because they didn't show up to the subpoenas that Congress had sent to them.
Well, I think that's a possibility, but to this day, over 60 years later, they still haven't released anything regarding JFK's assassination. So how are we to go to believe that they would be so forthright all of a sudden and so pro-America that they would just release whatever evidence they have against Biden when they still haven't released anything about JFK?
Well, we're in a different type of generation now than we were back then.
No, I agree.
And the information, I was listening to his son talk about that assassination and the information that was readily available or not available to the general public. He has seen it. He's had some questions about it. And there's always been a lot of controversy on whether or not there was more than one shooter there at the grassy knoll.
Well, I personally hope you're right. I would love for Biden to go to prison for his treasonous actions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's just too much evidence for that not to happen outside of someone higher up in government somewhere in some organization suppressing it and just literally classifying and sealing the documents. If that doesn't happen, then I think they should go after him. And it's not a vendetta as far as
no, I think
for Trump to do, but it just should happen. Yeah, absolutely.
And those examples, if you violate the law, as they say, you need to be prosecuted, irregardless of who it is what they're saying. Well, go ahead and pursue these issues. If nothing else, it'll establish a example to future politicians.
Set the precedent, right?
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? You think it'll ever come out, Manuel? You think they'll ever prosecute him, go after him? No?
Mm-mm. Because I don't know when this is going to come out, but as of today, he's having his meeting like we were talking about before we got on. And let's just say Biden and the family get together and they go, you know what, we're not going to do this. And he just completely leaves like tomorrow. And then he throws Kamala to the wolves. And then he just runs. And I mean, the impeachment kind of dies at that point. All those documents, maybe the thing just gets shelved by Harris, maybe. I mean, when Trump was the president, he tried to release JFK stuff, and it didn't happen. He ran into all the bureaucrats, if you will. So I don't. If that happens when Trump's in office, trying to do that, there's no, this could happen here too. That's just kind of that's why.
Well, the head of the Department of Justice is being subpoenaed.
No, I know, but that's
to court now.
No, I know Merrick Garland's getting subpoenaed, and taken to court and everything. I'm just saying, like, the timing of this, the rest of the debate, I just think that the Democrats are going to put their foot on the gas these last 4 months and just do whatever they can through their legal whatevers to try to bury it as deep as they can. It's kind of what I'm getting at.
I mean, we still don't even have the Epstein list.
I don't think you're going to get that either.
I'm just saying it's quite evident that certain things. The only reason it's going to come out is if the entire Democratic Party uses Biden as a scapegoat and washes their hands of him so that they all look squeaky clean moving forward.
Which that's kind of what I'm getting at.
And then they can just blame Biden for everything. That would be the only way I can see it.
It's like
it's going to be hard, though, when Obama is tied to it. So I'm not sure how they're going to approach that.
Obama is a part of somebody else is making these decisions for Biden.
Yeah, it's Jill.
He is obviously not competent enough to make those decisions.
At all?
No.
So
you really
it's
don't.
Said that through various news sources that Obama is a part of the shadow group that's making the decisions for Biden at this time. And I believe that. I'd like to know who else is involved in his cabinet that is actually running this country. And I'd also like to have that investigated. Because if Obama is actually running this as a shadow president, then we need, as the American citizens, need to know that and take legal action if any of these laws are violated. It seems we have a two-step justice system in this country, and it needs to be fixed. And I think this is a great time to fix this and prosecute those that have violated these laws in Congress to the full extent of the law. And shadow support groups are communistic type in appearance and quite common in communist societies and politics.
So you're basically saying that the Democratic Party is acting like a communist organization on American
absolutely.
soil?
I mean, take a look at this. And I think one of the things with CNN in the way they presented this
the debate,
was to start to soften and gradually make a transition from Biden's support and exposing him to all of the issues associated with his Alzheimer's disease.
You know what's funny is everyone's talking about Biden's mental faculty, right? And the fact that he looks like he has early stage or even, middle stage dementia is what people say.
Yes.
It took the debate. Okay, it took the debate where America slowed down to actually watch and pay attention for everyone to actually notice. This is how he has been his entire presidency.
Yes, it is.
From the beginning. And no one noticed for some reason.
Well, they did. Conservative broadcasting networks exposed him.
Of course they did.
At the beginning of it, but
I guess I'm referring to the general public.
The fake news industry didn't.
Yeah, I'm referring to the general public. Like the non-media, just the everyday person.
The fake news covered for Biden for 4 years. Now the general public and those Biden supporters that have been brainwashed by the fake news media has been exposed. And now that the fake news media has been exposed for all of their misinformation over the last 4 years since Biden has been in office is, like I said, exposed. And now I think that they're going to be looking at ways to make a transition to where they're still supporting Biden, irregardless of his condition, and trying to cover up for him now. But I see a little trend in where that is starting to subside.
Yeah, there are very few things the general public will get up for.
No, I understood. They just read the headlines. They don't go deeper.
So the Super Bowl is one, right? Presidential debates are another. So one night that you got, 80, 90 million eyeballs on this?
Yep.
Now you can't hide it.
No, you can't.
So now everybody's running for cover, little cover your ass type thing.
Good point.
Because remember a couple of weeks before it was artificial intelligence videos of him babbling, falling, which was all bullshit. And then, like I said, 80, 90 million.
You have a good point because it goes. It's something that I've said, you've said, and Rick's even said this in conversations off the mic, like when we've just been hanging out. But the general public doesn't pay attention. They read the headline, go on with their day, and they just take everything for face value or fact. They don't dig deeper. They don't question anything. It's like they don't want to be bothered with it. But you're right. Super Bowl, like large events where it's like, wait, we got to pay attention, watch this. Now they're all shocked. It's like, well, you've been supporting this guy the whole time and talking all this crap about MAGA and Republicans and anybody who's not Democratic, part of the Democratic Party, basically.
And then you finally get those people that, whatever the ratings are on some of these networks, finally watching it, and they're watching it. Their favorite anchors are going, "Holy shit! Yeah, this guy is feeble. This guy is this. This guy is that." So now they're like taking it in and going, "Fuck, who do we vote for now?"
I think it's too late in the game for them. They keep talking about replacing him, but I think it's too late in the game. They're too invested. But we're going to tackle that later.
Well, the delegates are already pledged and everything for this guy.
Exactly. It's too hard to move the money around. It's hard.
Not going to happen. Also,
I mean, like I said, outside of him going, "I can't. You're in charge, Vice."
There's ways to do it, but let's go down.
I thought it was funny that Gavin Newsom was the only guy
I know. Okay, let's kick that can down the road a bit.
Sorry.
No, I want to talk about that.
I just thought it was hilarious.
We'll circle back to that. Go ahead and go through some clips. Let's actually go through some of the debate issues. And there's always key issues that the general public always is concerned with. One of them has always been the economy. And this one's really good because when this debate came out, especially when it came to the economy, there's a few things on here I'm going to point out later. The traffic on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, all over social media, everyone immediately, all your favorite Democratic, wannabe correspondent, came out and was just, everyone called Trump a liar. They said he lied 34 times, 50 times, 400 times, whatever. And they would say, oh, he's a liar, he's a liar, he's a liar, but they would never back up their statement with any facts. So hopefully we can go through that. I'm going to play the clip here. Let's go ahead. I think this question was the first question of the night, and it had to do with the economy.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for an insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody, to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the price around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Yeah, we don't need Trump talking.
Well,
let's just go off of that.
We don't. Not on this one, but anyway. Manuel, sounds like you have something to say about that. What do you think of Biden's response there in regard to the economy?
We can start with Jake Tapper lying about the cost of food. It's higher than that.
It's higher than that.
Well, it was said that the cost $100 worth of food now costs a minimum of $172.
Yeah, that's what it was. I was going to say that.
Most of this food, what I buy on just stuff that my wife lets me pick out for me, like cereal. I'm going to use that as an example. I used to buy a medium box of cereal, Cheerios, for about $3.40. Now they're $5.50. It's almost double. So there's a 100% increase in the cost of my cereal.
And groceries. What do you think, Mel? What are you going to say?
No, that's what I was going to say. But just the way Biden, like the economy was garbage when he picked it. I think the inflation was like 2 point something when Trump left. The gas was nationally at $2.60 something a gallon. Unemployment was 6%, and then he takes over, mandates the COVID stuff, keeps things closed, and then turns around and injects trillions of dollars into the economy. Supply chains go belly up because Buttigieg, how do you say his name?
Yeah, Pete Buttigieg.
Buttigieg. Whatever.
Well, he injected $7 trillion into the U.S. debt.
I was just trying to be nice.
Trying to be conservative.
Yeah, he just and then we can't get the ships into port, and all of a sudden 6% unemployment becomes 15-20%, and inflation is now in the 13-14% within the first year and a half, and he's over here saying this is all Trump's fault. That alone just kind of like made me laugh really hard on the couch. I don't know.
All right, so
before COVID hit, Trump had the unemployment rate down at an all-time low at about, I believe it was 2.5%.
Yeah.
And then Biden's coming in saying since he's been president, the unemployment rate has dropped lower. Where he gets that from, I'll never know. He must have had a nightmare or something, or a dream.
That's possible. All he's doing is confirming what Robert Hur said in the first question. Mm-hmm. Bag of spaghetti.
Bag of spaghetti. Oatmeal brain. All right, so here's I've gone down this road a few times. I have so many facts and whatnot, but let's. I'm going to break down not the grocery price because we all know it sucks. Gas is indisputable. He was saying that he walked into a bad economy that Trump left him behind. Now, if I'm going to trust anyone about business and finance, let's just go to Forbes. Forbes actually broke all of this down. Okay, the inflation, for example, he keeps talking about how the inflation was horrible when he took over.
Mm-hmm. This is where you get the fact check me, right?
I fact check everybody.
All right.
Inflation was far worse during Biden administration. Okay, it was up 19.9% over the first 41 months of Biden's term, compared to only 5.4% during Trump's first 41 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not sure how Biden thinks he walked into a bad inflationary period, but he created that. All right. According to the government's consumer price index, year-over-year inflation peaked under Biden at a 4-decade high of 9% in 2022 before falling to just over 3%, which Biden has blamed on COVID-19's lingering impact and the Russia-Ukraine war. Okay. I mean, maybe don't keep sending 60-something billion every time frickin' Zelensky calls you. How about we don't do that? But whatever. So there's that. Gas prices, Rick, like you said earlier, the average cost of a gallon of gasoline dipped from $2.37 to $2.28 from December 2016 to 2020, all during Trump's term.
Except for California.
California doesn't count.
Let's not talk about California. That's a whole different... You're going to make me go off on Gavin Newsom. We don't want to see that.
Okay, so I was off by 40 cents.
No,
sorry.
You're good. I'm just fact checking good old Joe frickin' Biden over here. So according to the Energy and Information Administration, gas prices rose to an all-time high of over $5 per gallon in 2022, shortly after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. See, the only thing I don't like about this Forbes breakdown is they try to keep shifting the blame over to the Russia-Ukraine war, but that isn't really what affected it.
No.
Because at the time, Trump had us pretty much energy independent. We weren't buying that much oil from everybody.
That's true.
We were using most of our own.
Absolutely.
Okay? After Biden came in, he did reduce how we processed and drilled for oil. We still are doing it, but he also sold off and drained a lot of our reserves and sold it off to foreign nations.
Well, he shut down the pipelines that were... Yes. The oil industry was able to lower the gas prices on the impression that they were going to be able to continue with this pipeline, and he shut all that down, and we had to, like you said, import more oil.
Yeah, killed thousands of jobs doing it.
Yeah.
Yes. They lost 3,000 jobs within the first 3 weeks, say a month of Biden being
that
in
absolutely
office.
affected gas prices. It wasn't really the Ukraine war in and of itself.
No.
I mean, he was already on the road to basically killing the gas price issue and making sure that we were reliant on foreign oil. And we already know why they do that is because at the time when they didn't go ahead and renew that 50-year long or whatever long contract with Saudi Arabia, they're no longer trading barrels of oil according to the standard of the dollar now. Okay, that's the only reason the United States was continuing to buy the oil and push everybody to buy foreign oil was because of that. It was based off the U.S. dollar as the standard and measure of how much it was worth. Now that it's not there, now what? Now what do? Should we not just use our own oil?
You drain the oil. You drain the oil reserves.
Well, our oil reserves. That is one. Right. He claims that the oil price.
That was one of his deals. I just thought it was. I just wanted to bring it up. That's all.
The oil reserves. Biden has said that the gas prices are dropping. They've dropped a small, tiny fraction because he's been using, like you said earlier, our reserves that are actually used for emergencies for the military.
Yes.
And
but we shouldn't even have to use those reserves.
And as such, he has exhausted that reserve. The last statistic I heard was that our oil reserves right now are at 3%. So that's pretty low. Very, very bad news for the security of this country. Given the state of where we're at.
True. What were you saying?
What I was going to say was what the hell's her name? The press, Karine.
Press secretary?
Pierre Karine.
Whatever her name is.
Jean-Pierre.
Yeah. She made a statement a few weeks ago talking about how he wanted to go into the reserves again. So if we're at 3%, we're going to get down to 1%?
Possibly.
Well, there's an issue with that.
Wow.
Okay, he reduced and handcuffed the oil industry from drilling and processing. He never stopped it, but he extremely reduced it.
He
closed a major pipeline that would have made everything more efficient.
Of many things that he's done with the oil industry.
Understood. It would have made it more efficient and would have drove down the price of oil. Okay.
Yeah.
So those two things in combination with him continuing to now dip into our reserves is going to put us in trouble and make us reliant on foreign oil again. Only difference is we're going to be screwed even worse is because now it's not based on the value of the dollar anymore. It's not backed by the dollar.
That's right.
Good old Biden, right? All right. So I think we're done with economy. Well, no, I have one more thing for you.
Uh-oh.
We didn't get to it because it comes up later in this question, but we'll just skip past it. I think we got a little bit out. The federal debt. So everyone said that everything was worse under Trump. They always say, highest debt ratio ever in 4 years of any president. Forbes says different. Says the federal debt of $34.75 trillion is 25% higher than the day Biden took office. So it's higher after he took office by $34.75 trillion, after rising 39% during Trump's presidency, up from $19.9 trillion. In January 2017, with the U.S. running a total deficit of $5.85 trillion from its 2021 to 2023 fiscal years, compared to $2.43 trillion from 2017 to 2019, and a record $3.13 trillion in 2020 alone. So they keep making the statement it was worse under Trump, our debt, but it's clearly was worse under Biden once he took office.
Yes.
So why do they keep telling that lie?
Because the general public doesn't fact check it, and it's just typical of everything else they've been saying over the last 4 years of his office.
True.
And
you got nothing
that
over
was
there? No.
That was brought up by Trump in the debate, the economy and the inflation rate. So, in short, Biden is the worst president we've had in American history, and when you fact check it, you will find that that is the case.
You know what's funny with the fact checking stuff is the government has to, if it's not classified, they have to report everything to the public. Okay, they have to. The problem is the people don't realize that. And so if they don't see it in the news, like you said, Rick, or they don't see it in a headline, they don't think it happened, or it's not a fact.
Well, the news gets their information someplace, and that is from the government.
No, I understand.
And so the Democratic Party is keeping those facts from them. But if they have what they used to have.
It's from the Department of the Press Secretary, obviously.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, every time I fact check, I could go to the direct government websites, okay? Not the news sources, not the press secretary's websites. You can go to the actual government websites and find all this data, which is where I pull most of it. And every time you look at it, it totally makes Biden out to be a liar. Every single time.
Well, that's the part of the news media and the fake news is they don't bring these things up.
Okay. Well, and I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, it's evident that the government does have control of the media and does sway them.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, the information, most of this you can actually find on actual government websites.
Yes, but the American public doesn't go there.
No, I
in front
understand,
of them.
and that's not
They don't have time.
my argument.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. I'm just saying the information is there.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to find it news. So I guess go past the headline, do a little research.
Well, if they had investigative journalism like they used to have, then
that's dead. That ain't happening.
Yeah, then that would.
Then you end up like Julian Assange in jail for 12, 14 years or whatever it was.
Well, what you do and what you've been able to research is through social media.
Yeah.
Now, with the advent of social media,
people have just gotten lazy.
The people are now being able to get that information.
People have just gotten lazy.
They are lazy.
That's all you can say.
Well, they're kind of giving up on the government.
Right.
I mean, and I don't think it's lazy. I know when I worked, I used to, if I was awake, pretty much, I was working. So if you work 8 hours a day, you get up an hour earlier, you get home an hour after you're off, and then that's 10 hours a day. You prepare dinner and do the chores that you have to do when you get home. You know, you're looking at 12 hours a day, and you're exhausted, so you don't have the time, and you're get into the political scheme of things, and you have to believe in the sources that are available to you, which is the fake news source.
I agree with you. And the other thing is, the reality is life these days for most people, I mean, they get enough bad news every day just in their interactions throughout the day. Last thing they want to hear is what's going on in politics, because politics is one of those topics where right away, if you mention, hey, I want to talk about, for example, like we're talking about the debate, people right away put their hands up going, oh, well, hold on. I don't know if I want to talk about that. That's a little sensitive.
Well, these things, you're exactly right. I mean, they're just too tired and they rely on those news sources. And if what they're actually doing is getting brainwashed by these liberal news stations.
Well, if this debate proves anything, is it backs up your statement and it's backing up what you were saying earlier, Manuel, on the fact that if you don't pay attention, this is where we end up. And we got a president who has to be jacked up on adrenaline just to function.
I don't think it's
can't access information.
I don't think it's adrenaline.
And whatever it is they're doing. I don't think but how dangerous is it for a guy who makes a decision on whether or not we're going to go into World War III? I mean, what if he accesses the wrong part of his brain and says the wrong thing?
You brought up an interesting fact.
Can we just real quick? Okay.
When there's a missile strike against the United States or a threat, he's got 6 minutes to respond.
Yes.
And if he's that flabbergasted during this presentation or this debate, where do we stand in the advance of a defense with incoming missiles?
I don't know. What if he has another robotic glitch?
Yeah.
What if he goes?
Well,
what's he gonna do?
That's what I was
staring off into space, freaking drooling off his chin.
This is my thing: is do you guys really think it's dementia or Alzheimer's, or is it just general aging?
No,
because in this debate, even though he's drooling and falling apart, he is recalling things, and he does have some kind of. I'm just throwing this out here as kind of the other side of it. He does sort of mentally recall events, and they're fairly accurate.
As you get older, what he's suffering now, they've already had particular psychologists come on and doctors come on to analyze what they're able to see while he's on television.
Okay.
And they were very conservative in saying that he suffers, that they didn't examine him, so they can't give a
definitive diagnosis, right?
Exactly, a definitive answer.
But visually,
they're saying that he's about at least 6%. Suffering at about 6% of dementia.
On that, he's already on that.
And as you get older, that just gets worse and worse and worse, and then eventually you have to be, or you may be a hospital.
You turn into this.
I would say beyond age, though. Okay, like I honestly am busier than hell with everything I do, and there's times that my brain goes faster than my mouth will let things out, and I actually will sometimes do what Biden does, but not to that level. But that's different. he doesn't necessarily, you can see where he blanks out. Like he just, it's like he doesn't realize where he is. And then all of a sudden it's just like he wakes up and snaps into it.
Would that be similar to McConnell blanking during a couple press conferences where he just froze?
Could be, actually.
Because he's, what is he, 80?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's probably the same thing.
Age is a factor, but I've spoken to many people in his age range, and there are some people that are just snappy. Like those synapses, everything's still going. Okay. And then I've been around people, and so have you, that had dementia when they were in their older age, and you can tell the difference.
No.
You can tell when it's starting to settle in. And I think he may be there. Again, we're not doctors, but I've been around it. And
with this dementia,
very close.
Like you said earlier, that sometimes you have issues addressing certain things during your day-to-day activities. And that's human nature. I think in his case here, like they said, he spent, a week at Camp David preparing for this.
I know, that's scary.
And what the fake news hasn't told anybody is that there was a lot of, from what I'm gathering, is news media people were there at that site, and it was set up like a stage.
Manuel.
I don't know the dude's name, but there's a guy that's been by his side since he was in the Senate, and they met in when he was 30 something, and the dude's 85 years old. So that's one of his advisors.
Gotcha.
So you have an 85-year-old and an 81 in the room talking about a debate.
Well, when you get into these debates and the legalities of it, like what you were saying earlier, like I was going to say, is when you're a doctor or you're a lawyer or whatever, like the lawyers have legal libraries, and they start discussing aspects of the law, regardless of what age they are, you have memory retention. So as you get older, you tend to lose some of that memory retention. It's just a natural thing that occurs. But in your younger days, there is so much in each one of these professions that you need to know that you need to reference libraries.
I think you're being nice, Rick. And I'm gonna go ahead and debunk everything you're trying to say in support of Biden being old. Okay, because I don't think it's just age.
No, it's
listen. There's videos where he turns around and tries to shake the air. Okay, he walks off in different directions. He calls people different names. He doesn't even know what country he is in sometimes.
Well, like
he falls up the stairs
and down the stairs.
It's more than age. It's more than accessing information under stress, because if you're stressed, I'm stressed, Manuel's stressed, I'm sure you got a lot being thrown at you, and someone asks you,
well, I'm not
hey, what color you want?
Nice
what color socks you want me to buy?
He is mentally deranged, and that is brought to the public's attention because now they can't hide it.
Okay, so let me finish my example. We're all busier than hell, right? You got a million things going on. You have a big family event. You're cooking. You're making sure the hotel rooms are booked for your family. Everything's going on. All of a sudden, your wife or significant other's like, "Hey, we need a new jacket. We're going out to the snow. You want blue or red?" And you're right in the middle of writing a check to whoever for the food you're ordering, and then you're also thinking about, "Oh shit, I got to go gas up." And you're right when she asks you, "What is your brain going to do?" She asks you blue. You go, "Huh?" You're going to turn around. Wait a minute. What? Your brain, because you're not focused on it. Okay, that's different. This guy's not there. Okay, he looks like a robot that glitches and malfunctions. Did you see? Okay, after this whole debate, they had a press conference. Remember, you just brought up in New Jersey, correct? Or wherever it was. They had a press conference.
That little rally thing, yeah.
Did you not see he's amped up? The guy's eyes are wider than hell. He's on some kind of cocktail. And then all of a sudden, right in the middle of it, he's feeling good. He goes, yeah, whatever. He turns to the right and puts his hand out like this. With this big old grinning smile, and then he realizes there's no one there, and he kind of like hops off, like, oh, I meant to do that. Bullshit. This guy's gone.
Well, you know what bothers me is he is the leader, and you're exactly right in what you've seen. He is the leader of this country.
Yes.
And
whether we like it or not, he is our president.
Looks to this country for support.
Yes,
and he is not able to provide that support, and he is a threat to this country's security.
You're dead on.
And he needs to be removed. Now, I understand that his cabinet can remove him from office.
They could.
And under the 25th Amendment.
I don't think they're going to do that, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out as we get closer, right?
Bring up the 25th Amendment, and his mental state of mind is such
Well,
to where it would fall under those guidelines of the 25th
Yes.
Amendment, and it states there that his cabinet has the authority to remove him from office.
Well, let's come back to his obvious mental deficiencies, and let's move on to another question that was asked. And this was all over social media. Okay, they're trying to play this up and basically push Trump into the corner of being, of course, a world-class racist.
Mm-hmm.
The question in how he responds and when he said black jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are you guys aware of what's been going on social media with this?
Yes.
Okay, all of a sudden every race baiter in the world is out there saying, what do you mean by black jobs? Well, obviously what he meant by black jobs was in reference to a question where they specifically were asking about black unemployment and how black individuals make less than white people. So if you're saying black, black, black in reference to black, how are you supposed to answer the question if you're not using black as the descriptor to whatever it is you're trying to respond to?
Well, I find it
I don't
interesting
understand it.
that the black people that appear on some of these
You're
conservative
being
talk
racist,
shows,
Rick. You can't say black people.
well, I mean,
Just messing
you
with
know, and well, we're white people. They're
I'm
black
messing with
people.
you.
There's
I'm
Chinese
messing with you.
people, and I don't look at it in this day and age as racist.
No.
Racist
It's a
is
descriptive term.
word that blacks and whites use
Yes.
as a direction to accuse somebody of being a racist.
It's crazy because
if you watch sports, you watch shows, new like various conservative news broadcasting networks, they bring black people in that are highly intelligent and some of the best in the world of what they do.
So a couple of things here before we move on. I'm personally tired of referring to and segregating people into colors and then correlating their color to why they're poor and why they're in dire straits and why they don't get this or that. And then they try to make that particular group reliant on the government.
Well, that's
Okay.
what the system has created.
The other thing is if something happens, okay, a crime happens, for example, how are you going to describe a particular car? It's make, model, and color. How are you going to describe a particular person? By their color, period.
Mm-hmm.
If a white guy did it, it was a white male, 6'2", whatever. Black guy did it, it's a black male, 6'2", whatever. If it's a Mexican, it's a Mexican or brown person, 6'2", whatever. If you don't have that major descriptor of who the person is, how the fuck are you ever going to find them? You gotta define what the person is in terms of color when you're talking about description. But it should never be used to categorize a person. You know, put them in a certain category as, oh, you're black, you can't do this job, and this is, you know, the economic state you're supposed to live in. That is not true. That is racism. But how can you not?
How
I mean,
did
when they're
we
asking
get
you a
here?
specific question about black unemployment and black economic status,
But that was created years ago
You know what I'm
by
saying?
the various
I know. Well,
institutions that
I know.
got after the news media.
I know, redlining the whole deal. I get it. Let's go ahead and go here on this question because you'll see.
What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them.
Okay, again, what do you say to black voters? Right?
Okay.
Okay.
He
Black
said,
voters.
What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who provide...
I'm sorry, hold on. Okay, so when this thing opens, he blames the inflation on Trump and then says the inflation is low now. But now the inflation is too high for black people. So where's the inconsistency is amazing to me. Like he's not sticking to anything.
That happened through the whole debate.
I just wanted to say that. Go ahead.
Mhm.
I mean, they only make a point of convenience, right?
I guess it's just weird because it was low because of me. It was high because of him, but now it's high again for them. But I thought it was low.
I'm not disagreeing.
Out student loans that were ballooning. that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you.
All right, so there's the comment, or there's a statement, black jobs. Do you guys hear any racism in that?
Not at all.
We don't care what they're saying on X,
but it's everywhere. Okay, it's not just X. They're trying to use this as something against Trump. Okay. I agree. It's not a racist statement. He's just using black jobs in reference to the question to respond to a question about specifically black people. So I don't know.
Did you also catch the student loan forgiveness there?
I caught that.
Yeah, the illegal.
And I also caught while he was making his statement
I just wish Trump
about the black community, he threw in gay people there too.
I just wish Trump
well, here's a part of his dementia issues is the Supreme Court has already said that he cannot supplement.
No, I know, but he mentioned that he did it. It's just kind of like...
Well, he didn't do it.
He didn't do it? So we got nothing else to say on that one, huh?
No, that's whatever.
So people are just full of shit. They just need to pull their head out of their asses and stop trying to turn this into some racial issue that was never, ever there.
No.
No matter what you say in this country or what you do in this country, you're always going to have somebody have something negative to say about what you have spoken about.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next question in the debate, or the next question that we want to go over and cover, which is border security, which is a big concern for everybody. So obviously we already went through economy, which is huge. Border security is probably number 2, sometimes flips over to number 1 in terms of concern for the American public. Let's go ahead and dive into this. I might play the whole thing, but if you guys want to interject, just tell me to pause or just whatever if you want to say something. We don't have to hear the entire question before you guys have something to say. Just let me know.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages.
Well, we can stop there for a second if you like.
Go for it.
First of all, the Border Patrol did not support, they didn't validate them.
No, they didn't.
And they came on the next day and made it known by the head of the Border Patrol that they're not supporting Biden. Well, they never supported him and never will support him.
In addition, actually, after he made the statement, within the hour, the U.S. Border Patrol Union posted on X that they not now, nor have they ever, nor will they ever support or endorse Joe Biden.
Yes, and then it was videoed. It was reported. A video report on it also.
But yet they say Trump lied 400 times in this whole debate.
Families were separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office.
I got facts for that later.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country.
Look at this. Look, the glitch. The glitch we're talking about.
Well put, I thought.
He doesn't even know where he is. But he's right. What did he just say?
First, he said he was endorsed, which he wasn't, right? And then he said that they're increasing
measures,
right. Which I don't think he's done.
Measures to
support
support
the
asylum officers,
more asylum officers, and then the whole separating kid thing. He blames Trump for that's mandatory because if they're a criminal, they have to they move the kid from that situation.
Well, they're bringing these kids over without parents, so you've got to provide a place for them to stay.
Yeah.
That and when he referred to separating the kids and the parents and then putting people in cages, that was actually an initiative that was put into place under the policies passed by Obama.
Yes, it was.
They built the cages. So what are you going to do?
Like literally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, let's hear what Trump has to say. Even though he couldn't understand what he said at the end, but we'll keep going.
All he had to do is leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him.
Brandon.
All right. Brandon, I brought that up on my last show I did because I did a little breakdown and I had 3 topics I went over, but I wanted to save some of this other stuff for when you guys were here. So the whole Brandon thing, did you catch that? A lot of people didn't catch that. Brandon was what? Let's go Brandon, right?
Yeah,
That's what it refers to, which was a cover-up for the crowd saying, fuck Joe Biden.
That's right.
I love how he threw that in there. And most people didn't even catch it. Most people didn't catch it.
I didn't know if you wanted to present that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like this.
Look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in caravans.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed 3, and his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in and his administration, killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people, that's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said.
All right, bullshit. So, firstly, he had to, in that statement, say, I didn't say there weren't anyone coming over the border, but he will not own up to what the numbers are or to the levity or gravity of the situation. Okay?
No, he won't. And there was just 8 of them that were arrested down in L.A. For illegally coming in the country and threatening.
This is where I'm going to kick into the data now. Okay? Because Biden is full of shit on everything. Because I've done so much research on this border thing. Okay, I did one episode where I dove in and tore apart Ilhan Omar's past and her nefarious actions. And in that, I went into the whole border issue we had. And this is way before this came up. Mm-hmm. And I even had to respond to some fucking idiot on X. So I'm just going to read my response because it kind of leads right into this. It has some of the data that has to do with the terrorists that have come over. So this guy was saying Trump lied 30 times. Okay, so I said those who say that Trump lied over 30 times in the debate don't actually know the truth and are just regurgitating what's said by the media. When he said the border was out of control and the terrorists were entering the United States, he was correct. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, thus far in 2024, they have recorded encounters with 316 terrorists on the watch list, and the year isn't even over. In 2023, they recorded encounters with 736 terrorists on the watch list. These numbers only account for those individuals who have been apprehended while entering all ports of entry. So just the ones that they apprehended. Not talking about the gotaways or the people that snuck in. These are the people they just actually had met and apprehended. There have been a measurable increase in terrorist encounters in the United States with a total of 1,703 under Joe Biden's presidency so far. The only year that saw a dismal amount of encounters was 2021, which was the start of the COVID pandemic. Period. Over 1,703 terrorists that were actually caught, apprehended, that they know of, by the way, under Biden's watch. You want some more data? So check this out. Oh no, yes, you need it. So there's two types of encounters they have. I'm not going to talk about terrorists. So they have field operation encounters, which involve people who are seeking asylum legally, for example, and they may be rejected after investigation. Then they have other encounters which are illegal encounters. So I'm going to read the illegal encounters. So 2017, Trump's first year in office. They had 310,531 encounters from all ports of entry. First year of Biden in office, 2021, 1,662,167 people. Second year of office for Trump was 404,142 people. Second year for Biden, it jumped up to 2,214,652. 2019 for Trump's third year, 859,501 people. Third year for Biden, 2,063,692. And of course, it didn't end any different. 2020, it dipped down for Trump to 405 and 36, so 405,000. At the last run of his term right now for Biden, we're at 1,293,375, but we're not done with the year. We're about halfway through or so, okay? So tell me how Biden tried to say that he inherits a very bad border situation from Trump, and then tries to say he never got support from the Republicans. He's the first person to come together and make a bipartisan deal, when Trump, even in his response, said, I had no support from anyone, but somehow I still made it work. Mm-hmm. The evidence is here. And this is an example of what I talked about earlier, Rick. You don't see these stats anywhere, but it's right here. It's on the U.S. Customs and Border Protection website. The data is right there.
Yeah, I'd seen those stats on Newsmax, and you were, like you said, you won't see them on any other liberal news media source at all. And, I am so disgusted with the news media sources that it's unreal. They are during the wars, the First World War or whatever, they had what they used to call Tokyo Rose. And Tokyo Rose was a woman that would talk about various battlefronts, and her ideology or her job was to discourage the enemy from different functions of various battlefronts and intimidate them and to scare them and have a psychological impact on these soldiers that were in the battlefields trying to advance. And she was very well known. And I correlate the news media to that as a brainwashing technique to the American people. And we had mentioned earlier that most people have to work to support their families and don't have time for research. So I think the news media knows that, the fake media source. And as such, they are no different than Tokyo Rose was during the war in misrepresenting what is actually going on politically in this country and supporting Biden.
So you're basically saying, if I'm right in what you're saying or how I'm interpreting you, that the modern news media of today is nothing but a giant psyop to keep the American people in subjugation to the government?
Yes, and they don't to the Democratic Party.
Right.
And so I really would like to see when Trump came on during his office and had something to say to the American people, like the State of the Country addresses, and the news media sources, the fake news media sources, would block it out. I think for that reason alone, the news media becomes not a news source.
Well,
they are a propaganda source, and they need their broadcasting licenses suspended or removed.
Yeah. So just in the little bit of fact checking we've done on this show so far, we've already basically supported your point and what you said. Manuel, what do you think on the border security issue?
Yeah, there's nothing. I mean, he's allowed almost. Trump's numbers aren't really that accurate, but it is tens of millions. I don't think it's 20 million. But
for what?
For letting them in.
Yeah, it is.
Is it 20 million?
It's reached what they claim is 20 million now.
Shit.
Yeah, I mean, I can go over all that.
The last time I looked at it was somewhere around 11 or 12. I guess it is 20. In
the last few weeks they've updated that amount.
I'm going to be totally honest. The border issue is a pipe dream no matter what president you got. Because every 4 years, the next guy comes in and sets it on fire and does what he thinks is right. And we already know that most of the time the Democratic Party, whoever they nominate, will come in, rip the wall down, and let in the next wave of Democratic voters. They're going to hand them all the freebies, and then the Republicans will try to shut it down. They won't be highly successful. This is just a big circle jerk for me, and there's no way in 4 years Trump is really going to drag that number down now. So we're just going to keep.
We're just going to keep that they will.
It's just going to keep, in my opinion, anyway. It's just going to continue to snowball.
I think what Trump's going to do is he's going to continue building that wall and drive that number back down.
Assuming he gets 100% support in Congress.
Right,
unless
he was like he said earlier,
unless he
was able to do it without
is what he did the first time.
Though.
Well, listen, Trump didn't have the support then, and the numbers were lower regardless.
Yes,
like a quarter of what Biden's.
I think he's going to have the abilities to do that. One of the things that he did skated over also was when they asked him how he was going to remove these people from the country, and they don't have. You can't use the police department. They're not big enough. So he's going to have to use the military.
Maybe, but I think, okay, so if we just
that image alone is going to make Trump look like a dictator on all levels.
It will, but I don't think he'll do that because
he's got 62+% of the American people.
I don't think he's going to call the military because that he knows that'll work against him. Look, he'll just bolster and enforce
the National Guard. I refer as military.
He will just bolster and enforce ICE and probably put more money into ICE and into Border Patrol so that they have more agents so they can do their jobs. That's the only answer for him.
Well, that's a possibility.
The big issue I have with the border and why I'm so pissed about it. So the economy obviously affects everybody. The problem I have with the border is everyone gets stuck on how many people cross versus who didn't cross, and that's all they talk about. What they're not talking about is the ramifications and the danger we have in playing with the border and just using these people as talking notes,
pawns,
and as pawns for their political objectives, which is fucking stupid. Especially when I just read that when they had 1,700 something terrorists caught coming over the border, 1,700, it only takes one to radicalize 20 people. And then you just keep multiplying that. 20 can radicalize 200, and it keeps going. The issue we have is they're not taking it serious. You can't do this. Go try this shit in China. Not going to happen. Try this in Thailand. Not going to happen. Malaysia is not going to let you do that. North Korea doesn't let anybody go in or out.
What you said is absolutely correct. And one of the things that you learn in the service is they used to use the term guerrilla warfare, which they did in Vietnam.
Yeah, well, that's when it was first coined, right?
What happens is China and these groups, they'll bring in and they'll break down groups of guerrilla groups. We're going to say they can be 3, 4, 5 people, and in some cases just 1 or 2. But generally, they're a small group of people, a couple, 2 or 3 or 4. They go into a particular area unknown, and you can't protect against that not knowing that they're there because they're dressed like the rest of the civilians like we've got in this country. And move into a territory or an object that they want to blow up, destroy, or in that small group number and do their damage. And it's very, very difficult to combat that type of fight against that type of combat. So that's with this border opened up and these terrorists that you said that are coming in from various parts of the world, Iran, Iraq.
Do you know where a lot of these people are coming from, though?
Well, they're coming in from they're coming in
from everywhere.
China.
But
a lot of them are,
know where a lot of the terrorists that they're catching are coming from?
From Iran, Iraq,
Somalia.
Yeah.
Which congressperson do we have that is from Somalia?
Oh,
and who
she
hates
doesn't
America?
have that much pull.
Ilhan Omar.
Stop it.
Really, in her own state,
Mm-hmm.
they caught a terrorist who was allowed to stay there and roam for one whole year before they did anything.
Do you think she's got the paperwork on every one of them?
You know, her father was the general of enforcement in the military of the terrorist ruler back where she lived. She's the daughter of that guy.
I know that, but I guess let me rephrase this.
I'm just saying there's ties.
Do you think she has the intelligence? Somalia's sending it to her.
I don't think you could underestimate her. I don't like her.
You can't rule anything out.
I think she should be removed. And there's too many coincidences where her name comes up.
Yeah.
Period. Okay, so outside of terrorism, this is what I was going to try to say earlier before I started going down the Ilhan Omar road. The wall isn't enough. It isn't enough. Okay. The other thing they need to do is stop foreign governments and allowing them to buy fucking property and assets in the United States. Did you know? I don't know if you know this, Rick. Manuel, maybe you heard this. But the Chinese, the People's Republic of China, were so bold as they bought buildings in different states. They were just caught recently running their own fucking state-ran police station in New York City.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And they've had these, I'm going to call them posts, in other states as well.
Yeah, and we're not talking about a consulate.
No.
We're talking about
police.
Right out in the open,
mm-hmm.
an actual police force ran by the People's Republic of China.
Yes.
In the United States.
Yes, and it wasn't just New York, though.
Chinese people in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yep. Enforcing their own laws
mm-hmm.
and agendas mm-hmm. in the United States.
Well, you know, this Congress needs to be evaluated in its structure now. And something
needs to be evaluated. You know what they need to do? They all need to be lined up. They need to run down there in a golf cart. Guy holds out a stick with a giant fucking rubber hand. They all need to get slapped in the face as they're driving by really quick. Round them up and just kick them out of the house. Kick them out. They're done. Just start over.
Absolutely. I mean, what these foreign countries are doing to this country and what this country is allowing them to do, which has been predominantly the Democratic Party because they've had the control of Congress so long, and all these outside activities of invasion, we'll call it, to this country is a direct consequence of the Democratic Party, period.
Okay, so let me ask a question again. I'll ask Mel. Do you think it's okay for foreign governments to be allowed to buy property and own assets within another country?
No.
What do you think, man?
No, it's not okay, but it's legal in our country though. The only way to solve it is, like he's saying, passing some kind of law.
How is it legal?
I can go to a foreign country and buy something. That's the concept is what I'm getting at.
You're not going to be able to go to China and buy land.
No. Okay. So, example. Well, I could pick up Portugal because you can't just go there and buy a property. You have to be a citizen.
Right.
You can't just go to Italy and buy a property without being vetted, approved, and going through many different processes.
Well, I've got family that attempted that, so they know, and they had told me they were interested in moving to various parts of France or Italy.
It's not easy, is it?
And no, it's not. What they have to do is they have to show, they have to have something like $200,000. We discussed this a few years ago, so I may not be exact with the dollar amount.
But still, it's not like you can just go do it.
They're going to have a minimum of $200,000 in the bank and X amount of dollars as an income, they're not going to support you.
And the government has
and
to
you
approve
have
it.
to be self-sufficient and show
Yes.
that you have enough money and enough reserve in the bank to support yourself.
And the government has to approve you.
And the government,
even if you just have the
absolutely.
money,
And
they
the
don't
government has
just
to
let you
approve
buy property.
I've known years ago people that moved to Mexico and bought houses down there in a resort area that was being built and advertised on American TV in Mexico. And the Mexican government comes in and confiscates the property after the people moved in and paid out all that money for it and took the homes away from them.
Let's get back to the heart of this question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Manuel, you made a point, but that more refers in what you're talking about, Rick, to individuals buying residential property. I'm talking about governments. Okay, the Chinese government owns bridges in America. They actually own farmland in America. The government, not an individual.
Well, I understand the farmland. I didn't know that they own, quote, bridges.
They do. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm talking about. Government's able to buy. I know a company could buy. I guess you can make investments, but even then, like Rick said, as with residential purchases, you're vetted. You can't just do it.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of what I was saying. You can go to a foreign country and buy something, but you have to go through the steps.
Many steps.
Yes, but you still can. And in America, it's legal for somebody to come from China and buy something.
Well, we're talking about individuals.
Yeah,
we're not
I'm talking about the government.
countries.
Government.
Especially buying land next to all military bases.
Yes, government. In any country, a government shouldn't be able to purchase and just own land. Usually there will be an exception to where it would fall under, I forget the actual title, but it becomes kind of like a consulate, for example, or an embassy, right? It's treated that way, to where it's treated as sovereign soil and recognized as thus, but it's also recognized as a government agency allowed to have a presence. Okay, it's not looked at as a government just can go, I'm going to buy this farmland, I'm going to buy this bridge, I'm going to buy, this lake, and I'm going to own this dam. That doesn't happen, and that shouldn't happen. You're basically selling your country off.
I will.
That's exactly right.
I will back into my cave and close the door. I don't know.
No.
You get okay. All right. I will take my L.
It's not a correction. It's I'm not giving you a correction. What I'm
go
giving
into my locker room.
I'm giving kind of an opinion on how I don't think that should ever be allowed in the United States. You should not allow a foreign government, a foreign agent to own any property in the United States. An exception to be treated as an embassy or a place that is treated as sovereign soil that is approved and monitored by the U.S. government themselves is one thing. But to have the government making private investments and holding those assets and controlling them, and like Rick said earlier, where they're buying property strategically around bases, which is happening right now in California. If you look at the map, I can't pull it up now because I wasn't prepared for this, but basically they bought enough farmland that China has to, which base was it?
Well, they got San Diego down there.
Down in San Diego.
And then they've got, there's somewhere, I believe San Francisco or Oakland, but I'm not sure exactly where it's at.
I know there's two areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember San Diego, but they've strategically bought land that is basically surrounding one of our bases.
I'd have to look it up. I believe the other one might be Long Beach, but yes.
I'll bring it up. I might revisit this later in a different episode, but this is fact. This is what I do when I get in this situation to where I know I just don't recall. Mm-hmm. I just tell the audience, go Google it. Go look it up.
Yeah.
It's easy to find.
That's exactly
If we can find it, you can find it.
When I mentioned Tokyo Rose, that's actually the Second World War, not the First World War, because you get people to correct you over the system.
That's true, but sometimes you got to put it on the audience to go do your research because, we need to start training people to dig into the truth.
Yes.
Period.
Well, it's just general information, and if you want to know more about it, like you said, you can take it upon yourself to dig into what has been said.
Agreed. You got something there, Manuel?
Yeah, just the Chinese company that owns 370 acres in Grand Forks, North Dakota is the Fu Feng Group, right next to the Air Force Base out there. And then there's another one called WH Group They own Smith Foods. That's 2013 was the biggest purchase of pork in the country. So I guess it's a pork farm. That's also somewhere near a military base. Yeah. So, I mean, you guys are right that these companies are doing, but I don't. Well, maybe it's just Google. They're not telling me if they're tied to any like government entity, but
they are. And those businesses, and many like that in China, one of the biggest shareholders in those businesses is the actual Chinese government.
Oh, I guess
you cannot operate a government there without China being a partner in your government.
Like I said,
China owns a lot.
I'll take my L. I'll just go over.
Well,
China L, but I'm glad you looked it up because I couldn't recall where it was.
No.
They use those businesses as a cover-up.
Absolutely.
So that the generalized American public don't catch it.
I got a perfect example. To support both of your guys' statements here. Alibaba. Remember Alibaba?
Yeah.
Remember the owner where he wouldn't pay X amount of dollars to the Chinese government?
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese government is a big partner in Alibaba. What happened to that guy? He disappeared for how many months and then suddenly resurfaced out of nowhere with a whole different attitude, different tune.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
The Chinese government is involved in most any large corporation. You think Huawei just gets away with whatever they do with all their communications technologies without having the Chinese government, with their hands in their pocket and directing what they do? Not going to happen.
Well, you know what I think that happened? What needs to be done is laws imposed where the U.S. government and military can go into these barns and buildings that China has bought and check them out and find out what type of equipment and transmission equipment that they have in them.
And they should.
And whether or not they're being able to tap into communication sources, whether it's radar or whatever type, and find out if that's what they're doing. And if that's what they're doing, and I don't, then confiscate the property and kick them out of the country.
Well,
all of them.
In conclusion to all this border security question, Biden's a freaking liar. It was proven statistically that it was much better under Trump, regardless of partisan support. Period.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of obvious at this point.
Yeah, it is.
And while they were giving that debate, they were having funeral services for one 12, 13-year-old girl that was raped and brutally murdered.
Yeah.
By one of the illegals that came into the country under Biden's watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's sad. And so, and what we just did was bring up other issues with border security that most people didn't hear, they don't know about or hear about, that isn't talked about. So, I don't know. Hopefully people get something out of this and they take the time to do their own research to really dig into the truth. But I'm just tired of the border issue being treated as just some talking point, because it's more than that. It's our national fucking security. Let's move on, though. January 6th, it's been asked, and people have always say that Trump deflects, doesn't want to give a direct answer into his involvement, how he treated it, whether or not he incited the riot. I'm just going to play the question.
I still don't know how he incited it.
Well, listen. This will probably be more opinion than fact because a lot of facts have been suppressed, but I do have a little bit of information to bring up on it. Let's go ahead and play this.
We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say. But she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it, too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court. And they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing. And these people should be in jail. And they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
What do you guys think so far?
Well, I think Biden's in la-la land. One, he has no idea what he's referring to. He's just going by what he used to do over the years in the way that he rejects positive information.
Okay.
And I don't, and what Trump has said is actual factual. and that news media source were.
It was a documentary that
Talk about Pelosi.
Yeah, it was Pelosi's documentary.
Nancy Pelosi was
forgot the daughter's
accurate.
name.
I don't care who the daughter was.
Okay.
But her daughter, made the documentary.
So she's on tape saying, I should have taken the 10,000. I should have done this. I should have done that. Yeah.
I think all that information is going to get wind up.
But does she actually say she should have taken the 10,000?
In the documentary,
literally?
she's talking about regretting the way January 6th went down, how she should have accepted the 10,000 troops.
So she did say
Guard
that
or whatever.
I didn't see.
Have you seen that video?
I saw that documentary along
Well, no, this was just released, and
the video was
they were in the car.
But I saw a
talking.
documentary of her with her daughter following around. It was released at least a year or two ago.
No, well, this one
So
here.
I don't remember.
No, this one here. This one's relatively new. I have, it came out a week or two ago, was it?
It was a few weeks ago.
Well, you know what? This is where we do our crackpot research, as Manuel says.
Put that typewriter sound effect in there.
I might.
But one of the things that
here, hold on. I think I found it.
And
Rep Mans Pelosi. No, let's see if this comes up, Manuel.
Oh, he comes. I'm going to punch him out. This is my moment. I would pay to see that. I've been waiting for this, for trespassing on the Capitol grounds. I'm going to punch him out, and I'm going to go to jail, and I'm going to be happy.
It's on CNN. That's it? Okay, that doesn't say anything. That's not an admission. Where's the other video at?
That wasn't even the video.
Yeah, it said it was, but that's the one that...
If you would be able to pick
right
that
here,
up.
Right here. Was she riding in a car?
Yes.
Okay, found it.
On there, and we should have.
Let me back this up.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having just prepared for more.
Okay, so she's lying there that they didn't know. There's a whole timeline out there of what happened, and during that whole time leading up to the event, there was already chatter that was caught by White House security about the possibility of an actual militia coming together to riot on the Capitol. They found weapons and bombs. I'll try to pull it up, but there's a whole timeline where they had sufficient time to react to what was going on.
Some of that with the bombs turned out there was a pipe that was miles away that they thought was a pipe bomb.
No, I'm not referring to the pipe bomb. I'm talking to the chatter on the radio and everything else that they caught. They knew in advance, and they knew during the day as things were progressing that things were going to happen according to the chatter that they intercepted over radio frequencies. Okay. They literally had the timeline. Like at 10 o'clock, this happened.
Yeah.
This threat happened. This chatter happened. They knew. And in that timeline, they say only the Capitol Police and the Sergeant of Arms. Okay, here's the problem that they don't get through their heads. They keep saying the National Guard can only be called in by the governor. There is no governor for the District of Columbia. No. It's not a state. That's what people don't understand. It's not a state.
Well, all that's not the issue at this point. That was a separate thing. What's being brought up now is what he said with Nancy Pelosi, admitting that she did not.
Right, but I'm not done.
She takes responsibility.
I'm not done. The timeline shows that they had plenty of time to react, and them claiming that the whole thing about the National Guard or emergency services were not approved is bullshit.
Yes.
So here we go. Says right here, memorandum for security of the Army. This was dated January 4th. Okay. This memorandum responds to your January 4th, 2021 memorandum regarding the District of Columbia request for District of Columbia National Guard, DCNG, in support in response to planned demonstrations from January 5th through 6th. So they already knew ahead of time something was cooking. It says you are authorized and approve the requested support. You're authorized to approve the requested support subject to my guidance below. Now, it does say there's a couple of things that they said you can't do unless he authorizes it. It says you can't issue weapons, ammunition, bayonets, batons, ballistic protection. Basically, you can't take the military to attack U.S. citizens, right?
Right.
You can't have them physically interact. You can't employ any riot control agents, share equipment with law enforcement agencies, because a military organization can't act in the same way that the police can. They can't. Okay? Because then now you're attacking your own citizens. But it did say at all times the DCNG will remain under the operational and administrative command and control of the commanding general of the DCNG, who reports to the Secretary of Defense, to the Secretary of the Army. It says you may employ the DCNG, the District of Columbia National Guard, Quick Reaction Force, only as a last resort and in response to a request from an appropriate civil authority. Okay, if the QRF is so employed, DCNG personnel will be clearly marked and or distinguished from civilian law enforcement personnel, and you will notify me immediately upon your authorization. So they had the power at any time to call the National Guard. If they needed to escalate the situation, they had to get approval to do so, but it didn't say they couldn't. It just said I have to approve it if you're going to escalate their response, if they're going to have to use weapons and riot gear. But it doesn't say anywhere they were denied.
But that is accurate.
It is accurate.
However, but the person that they can get the approval from is the President of the United States.
No.
Authorizing or making a request to Nancy Pelosi, who has the authority to do that as Speaker of the House.
Yes, it didn't have to.
And that's why she admitted in this recent video
it didn't have to go,
she had the authority to do it, and she turned it down.
It did not need the president's approval.
No, it didn't have to have the president's approval either.
It clearly states it here.
Mm-hmm.
And in that timeline I told you about, the record of the events, they actually requested support of the National Guard 3 times, and they got no response.
Mm-hmm.
Who was responsible for that?
Pelosi.
Exactly.
So
like fact-checking's fun, right?
But exactly. That's just exactly what he was saying.
Here's the issue I have with Trump on January 6th. Why did he wait 3 hours to make a move to control the crowd?
That crowd moved while he was having his speech at that time. He didn't wait till 3 hours afterwards. He made that statement days in advance that there was going to be X amount of people there, and that he felt that they needed the National Guard for security.
No, that's true. I'm talking about the day of.
The statement that you just made turned out to be false information.
No.
Yes, it was. It was false information. He's on a stage preparing for his speech there at that instant, and he did not know what was going on at that time. Also, it was said that there was also agents there, FBI agents, that was involved in some of this situation at the Capitol. So at the same token, these people on January the 6th were being waved in by Capitol security. They opened up the gates, waving them in. It's going to be interesting to see how far Trump goes with this once he becomes president, because one of the people that keeps popping up is one of the security guards. They keep asking what his name was, that opened up the gate and waving all these people in from the Capitol. And so Trump didn't wait. He is at that time, he wasn't in a position, I won't say he was in a position, but hindsight is, it's like Monday Night Football. You come in hindsight and said he should have, he could have, and why didn't he? And at that particular time, he had already offered the protection that was needed given the size of the people that were showing up for the event. And he wasn't responsible. He didn't know at the time, and it was said by him and other support groups that he wasn't aware of what was going on at the Capitol during the time frame that he was getting prepared to give his speech there. So he did make reference in exactly what he said, that these people need to legally and blah, 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 he knows they're going to the Capitol, but they need to protest legally, in short. And, mobs are hard to control.
I don't think Trump should get off with that. I mean, the District of Columbia doesn't have a governor, like you say, but that is the president's area. That's his yard.
Well, it's also Congress's, certain people in Congress's responsibility. When the president offers the National Guard, which he can do.
But he doesn't have to offer it, though. Does he? He really has to sit there and go, will you take this, please? I mean,
okay, so
the District of Columbia is where the White House, all his area.
So
right? Or am I don't know. I don't know how the chain goes.
The person
out
who
there.
will make that call is the Sergeant at Arms for Congress.
Okay.
Okay. And that's not Nancy Pelosi, by the way.
No.
And it's not Donald Trump.
So Trump just can't drop 1,000 troops
He
there?
can offer, but you can't just offer military force. It has to be National Guard, which is still military.
Right.
But you can't say, I'm sending the Marines in to control U.S. citizens.
Okay. Well, that's a whole different entity.
It is. I'm just saying.
Maybe I'm going to take another L here. I don't know.
You're not, because there are conversations. They're saying they can't find evidence, but there's a lot of people that came out that say in conversations Trump did offer to send National Guard in. But in the end,
he also sent that letters to Pelosi suggesting that she approve it due to the size of the...
Right. And this letter here I read, this memorandum signed by Christopher Mitchell.
Miller?
Okay. Or I'm sorry, Christopher Miller.
There's no Mitchell in there.
Sorry, Miller. That he did give them authorization to approve the request. He just said, you can't do any of these military actions with the National Guard against U.S. citizens without...
Roll that back up.
Without his express
What it's saying is
approval.
memorandum of the Secretary of the Army.
Yeah. For the Secretary of the Army.
So everything that he said in there from the military, the National Guard is the National Guard. They're a separate entity.
Miller, listen, read it right here.
It's employment guidance for D.C.'s National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. It says it right here. Okay. This memorandum responds to your January 4th memorandum regarding District of Columbia request for District of Columbia National Guard. Support in response to planned demonstrations for January 5 and 6. You are authorized to approve the requested support.
And
the only thing it says, without my subsequent personal authorization, they're not allowed to be issued weapons, ammunition, bayonets, batons, or ballistic protection equipment such as helmets and body armor. And it goes to a whole list here. You can't employ helicopters or any other air assets, conduct search and seizures, arrest, or anything else without his personal authorization. Now, with that being said, if this was approved and the National Guard was actually deployed as they were approved to do so if they needed them, and it did escalate, that means what would have happened? The Sergeant at Arms or Pelosi or whoever was in charge had to call back over here and say, hey, this is where we're at. We need to escalate this, and he would have to approve that.
That's correct.
Okay. It's right there.
Yes.
So the problem I have is Trump's response. He's not the bad guy, I think, but here's your timeline, okay? Trump tweets 8:17 a.m. He does a tweet about Pence, blah, blah, blah. Okay, 8-something. Okay, the Secret Service sends an alert that there are more than 10,000 people in the line at the ellipse where President Trump is scheduled to speak. Now, before January 6th, they already knew something was going to happen. They're cooking, which is why they requested National Guard. If you keep going through all of this, there is a lot on here that says that they had encounters with people and heard chatter about stuff that was going to happen. Okay, Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen has a 9-minute call with a White House lawyer, Eric Henchman, blah, blah, blah. And it just keeps going. And then you see how it starts to escalate and escalate. 10:59, police recover 2 firearms from an unattended vehicle north of the National Mall. 11 a.m., Capitol Police is aware of a large crowd around the Capitol building, including a group of approximately 200 Proud Boys. Okay. Jeffrey Rosen receives a call from Pat, whatever, but I'm just saying, it just keeps going. Then you slowly start to see things escalate. Okay. Acting Defense Secretary Christopher Mitchell, I keep saying Mitchell. Miller participates in tabletop exercise regarding Defense Department contingency response.
Let's stop there for a minute.
Hold on. 11:30, they're already talking about Defense Department contingency response options.
Of the day of the event. But let's stop there for a second.
Okay.
So right there and then are all events that are happening on the day of that speech.
Yes.
Trump would not necessarily know all of what's going on here. So let's stop there for a second.
No, but that's not what I
back.
said. That's not what I said.
There was a number of days before when he contacted Nancy Pelosi, who can give this guy a call and tell him that they want the National Guard.
That's
why she
That's not what I'm disputing,
So
Rick.
he sent that.
My point is not Trump. My point being is the White House, Congress already knew things were going to happen.
Yes.
They were already approved to use National Guard support.
Yes.
They dropped the ball.
Right. Pelosi dropped it because she's the one that has the Speaker of the House, has the authority.
And the Sergeant of Arms dropped the ball because the Sergeant of Arms is the one who has to make the call ultimately.
With Pelosi's permission.
Sergeant Arms is charged with security.
Who does he report to?
Sergeant Arms
in there that
Sergeant Arms is almost like the police. They can literally take action when they have to.
They need authorization.
Regardless, there's enough here to show that they knew things were happening.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
They didn't take appropriate measures, and they tried to pin it all on Trump.
Yeah.
The problem, once I get to it, is that Trump made a speech. They started walking out over there. Trump, it's all in the timeline. He gets driven back. I'm not saying he did anything wrong, but seeing the things escalate, he could have went out. He could have went out to make another speech earlier than he did. He did the one speech, but he did come out later to address them again, and he made a tweet to try to get people to calm down. But he should have acted sooner, is what I'm trying to say.
That was all one speech. He didn't give two that day. It was one speech.
Okay.
So anyway, that's
Donald Trump returns the White House.
That's history at this point. But the new one is in this evidence that came forward with Pelosi making that statement in the car relieved Trump from the legalities associated with his court case. And it appears at this time, although they haven't said it, there's some deviance in it, that there is enough evidence with this tape that Pelosi was the one that accepted responsibility for what happened at the Capitol, which should relieve him from that lawsuit.
It took him till 2:14. It says a handwritten National Guard timeline says CG told to that the guard told to stand by the Secretary of the Army at 2:14, 2:15. The doors of the Capitol have been breached. So you're right. They dropped the ball. And again, I'm not blaming Trump. What I'm saying is, everyone was there to support Trump. And what I'm trying to say, and what I have been saying, is he could have. See, he makes another tweet, not related. There's plenty of time to say something to try to calm down the crowd. He didn't incite it. We all saw the speech. He didn't say anything. He said peacefully, right?
Exactly.
He didn't incite the riot.
And actually, that was said a number of times throughout his speech.
Yes, it was. But he had plenty of time to respond, and he should have responded because he could have probably calmed things down if he did.
Well, would have and should have could go refer back
here
to what
exactly
you just said with Pelosi.
Exactly
she would have and should have activated the National Guard before this ever
you said
occurred.
You said he didn't say anything, only said it once. 2:38 p.m. Donald Trump tweets, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful." Former Deputy White House Press Secretary Sari Matthews later testified that Press Secretary Kayla McEnery had told her that Trump hadn't wanted to include the word peace in the tweet, which is probably bullshit. But it says right here, he didn't respond to support police till 2:38. All of this crap was going. His speech was at what, 12?
I don't know what time the speech was and what time it was started, how long it took him to get prepared for it and get them set up, and I don't know what time.
He returned to the White House after his speech at 1:20.
But we already found some faults in that information that we just went over.
I'm just saying he had already an hour or two to respond to try to calm things down. He was making tweets already from his vehicle about Mike Pence and everybody else. So again,
I can't read his mind. I wasn't there. So irregardless, if he's at the time that he was,
Rick, all you gotta do is agree.
No,
just agree.
No, you don't have to agree
because he is going to swing this bat for another 20 minutes.
Listen, when you have the evidence, Did I say Trump did it? No. Have they proven? No, he didn't.
I know,
I'm in agreement with you.
But your overall point is,
well, you know what's going to be interesting out of all that we just discussed is this is going to be brought up now in a court of law. So if that information is...
But my question still stands, and this is one thing Trump doesn't answer every time he's asked. Why did it take him so long to come back?
Do you really
want?
He's never going to answer that. All he's going to do is cross himself up.
But that's the issue that I have. That's the only lingering thing out there that they can hold him for, is that his response. Why did he not?
A speech doesn't solve it, though.
It doesn't solve it, but if people are there under the guise of supporting him because they don't agree that the election results were correct, and they're going to storm the Capitol, he could have said something.
The speech doesn't solve anything. They're already in riot mode. The only action he can take is an action you're saying that he can't do without Pelosi saying yes. Which is sending anything in there.
No, that's not what I said. I didn't say Donald Trump send National Guard. What I said...
No, I'm saying...
As he could have communicated.
In that timeline you're pulling up here, when it gets to that gap before he makes a speech or a tweet or whatever about calming down, in that gap there, he could have sent some bodies in there to break that up, but he can't do that because you guys have both said that Pelosi has to sign off with Miller. So where would Trump win in that?
That's not the point. The point is he could have responded and said something to.
Well, we can't read his mind though during that window because it's a short window. He may not, like he said, he didn't know what was going on at the time.
It's still in question. Period.
Well, it could be in question, but the whole thing here, from a realistic standpoint, is that the President of the United States told Nancy Pelosi that given the size of attendance of these protesters, that they need national security, and she turned it down. If she would not have turned it down, they would have been able to deal with this issue, and these people may not or would not have been able to storm the Capitol.
Well, she also, with the prior knowledge...
That is the bottom line to all of this.
I'm going to say something you're not going to like.
Yes, do it.
If you have the information and means to stop a murder in a court of law, and they find out you have the information and means to do so,
you become an accessory?
You're an accessory. Okay?
I'm
just saying.
You know, you can't mix apples and oranges, and that's just what
they're all fruits. So
no, they're not.
Again, I don't think he started it. He didn't incite it. I just wished he would have went out there and try to do more to calm the people down.
So let's say, Pelosi,
that's all I'm saying.
If he would have come in with the after statement, how are they going to get the message? They've already left the area where he's at.
It doesn't matter. Something could have been done.
But according to the timeline, it's true. They knew about it. That's why they set the barriers up. Mm-hmm. But they didn't put the bodies there.
In the end, Trump didn't incite the riot. His speech, we all saw it. There's nothing there that said, let's go take this Capitol. Let's bring it down and take it back. He never said any of that. So I've never said that either. I'm just saying. I know he did.
That's true. The only thing the only controversy is the timeline and why he didn't say something while this is occurring.
That's all I'm saying. But the fault lies on the Sergeant at Arms and Nancy Pelosi, and they kept lying and saying, "Oh, we never got authorization. We were never approved." Bullshit.
My question is why didn't Nancy Pelosi and the Sergeant of Arms respond to Trump's request to have the National Guard there? Is where the problem is.
But she said in the video.
Yeah, exactly.
She said in the video that she's aware that it was offered, but it was already too late. They were already inside.
True, but even beyond...
No, this was before when he originally sent...
Oh, back in the letter?
Yeah, this was before. But even before that, we see Chris Miller did give authorization and did approve them to authorize the use.
He would have activated the National Guard, providing he had authorization from Nancy Pelosi.
No, it says he gave them authorization to request, meaning they were green-lighted.
Yeah. So she could have requested
exactly.
it. That's what I was saying, but it's in a different term.
And the only reason I'm saying that, Rick, is because at this point, Trump's irrelevant. It doesn't matter if he offers them or not.
Mm-hmm.
The ball's in her court.
Well, bottom line to the whole this again.
Listen, we're all on the same side. I'm just playing devil's advocate here
I
because
agree, and it's a good idea to bring up these different points of view. That's what you learn from.
And I brought this up because I saw something where they made the same argument. So I'm like, okay, why? Let's talk about that. Why? That's all they have, though. That's all they have.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be. The question is as to whether or not Biden is capable of running this country for another 4 years, and he is not. He's not capable of running it now. He was never capable of running it before he became president. The news sources have covered him up for the last 4 years, and they still have another debate coming up in September.
That's not going to happen.
And it's going to be interesting to see what happens between now and September.
There ain't no way.
His cabinet has the authority, and the only authority from the information that I got, to remove him from office.
I think with everything we've been talking about, even though I push some buttons, sometimes you have to, we've called them out. For as much as they say Trump lied, there's a document or there's an eyewitness testimony that supports Trump and totally makes Biden and the Democratic Party look exactly like what they are, bold-faced liars, period. Mm-hmm. They don't have anything on their side to prove anything against Trump. They even had to make up charges in New York to put some bullshit felony charge together. I mean,
well, here's what I'd like you to do. I don't think you've ever done this, but go to Google and print up or type up Alan Dorsifitz. And when that occurs, you're going to hear Alan Dorsifitz. You can open up a window that will allow you to see an interview with Alan Dorsifitz and Fox News. And Fox News talked about the trial that the 34 charges that were brought against Trump. And remember that Al Dorsifitz, he is a professor of law. He's a scholar and a professor of constitutional law and law. And his wife was as well, and she died several years ago.
Rick.
Now, the point is he sat in on that case.
Yeah, you brought that up last time. And honestly, I did a whole episode on this, and I actually went through every single document you could find. And I'm very versed on the case and how they came about to try to turn it into a felony charge. It's bullshit, period. The whole thing was made up. It's crap. The issue we have here is basically the Democratic Party is trying to keep control. They're losing control, and they know they're going to be outed.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's just like in any investigation, the truth comes out eventually.
Yeah.
And the news media is a fraud. The Democratic Party is a socialist activity that's fallen in line with the Democrat, and the news media's fallen in line with the Democratic Party.
Can't disagree with you there.
And it's a step away from communism.
Yeah, actually, I think you're very right on that one. Very right. What do you think, Mano?
Do you think the Democrats will hold the Senate?
I'm hoping not. I think it's looking right now that that's a possibility that they're not.
I mean, I know the Republicans are only, 2 seats in the House? Are they going to hold that?
Oh, who? The Democrats?
No, the Republicans have a 2-seat majority.
The Republicans right now feel that they're going to take the House back, and they have a very good possibility of taking over the Senate, and I hope to hell that happens.
Okay, so on the second time around, if they do get total control, do you guys think that Trump will actually complete some stuff? Because I know in the first 2 years he had control, and the only thing he can drag out was that tax cut. And the last 2 years of his presidency was Democratic controlled House and Senate. So,
well, that had and also don't.
So I'm just wondering if he does get control, do you think he's going to bulldoze and start
I'm hoping
swinging?
he does. I think he is. He's already presented or he said that he's already prepared and have formulated his cabinet. So when he goes into office, if he does get elected as president, that he's ready to go full speed ahead the day that he's appointed president. So his cabinet and his establishment has already been confirmed by him. And so I think that he will be able to achieve more. I had read a while back, and I'd have to go back and review it. And George, I think this would be an interesting one for you as well, and possibly a later discussion, that when the President of the United States is allowed to run for 2 terms of office, unless he has interference from his duties, his job, and his responsibilities, then he could be eligible for a 3rd term. Now, I had read that a while back.
I heard that too.
And I'm curious
right.
about
I'd like to
that.
look into
now,
that.
Since he had his first time in office with the Russian lies, and which led to him, which started up in the early part of his, or at the latter part of his term in office, when he started to run for president again. So he was still president of the United States, and he's got to investigate these sources and find out about whether or not he was, how this impacted him and his abilities to handle situations and the laws and to do his job. So there is it appears as though there are grounds at this point where he may be able to utilize that and actually run for president for a 3rd term.
Interesting.
Now, I've also...
You know where I first heard that 3rd term thing? Remember, they were trying to say that was something Obama was going to try to pull?
Uh-huh.
Remember that?
For a 3rd term.
Yeah, he was going to try to push for it.
Now that you mention it, there was some thought of that, I think, at one time.
I don't remember the circumstance on how that would happen, but can I ask this question? Do you think it would be wise to have Trump do a 3rd term, or should we just let him do his
I think
second term
Trump
and just
is
call
older, and some say there's too old for the job, but Trump has shown to be, and as he entered this debate session, his he had received word from his staff that he had passed all his physical aspects for running for office. So I think it depending on how it goes this time, I think it might be a good idea to run him for a 3rd office.
You
depending
think so?
on, but that's kind of premature. You'd have to know who's running against him, what that person's background and experience is, and that who the candidate is. In short,
I think that the answer here, period, between these 2 guys, Biden and Trump, is Trump, hands down, period. Mm-hmm. But I think personally that it really looks like Trump's going to win. I mean, I don't know how he's not going to win this unless we get another midnight 2 a.m. sudden 300,000 extra votes out of nowhere like we did last time. But I think that if he serves these next 4 years, I think that should be it. I think that should be a sign for an end of an era, and we need to bring in younger, fresher Republican candidates to move the party forward.
I think that's too far advanced in order to make that decision. It's a possibility, but...
I'm saying after he serves his 2nd term is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's kind of far out. We're looking at 4 more years down the road. He may not have the abilities to run for a 3rd term.
No, exactly. What I'm saying is after he serves his next 4 years, just let him, that's it.
Well, I think his first term in office, there was too much stuff thrown at him legally to be able to effectively address all the needs that the President of the United States had to address at that time.
Yeah.
That the Democratic Party created.
I understand what you're saying. I just think we should move on after. You know what I mean? Get Biden out of the way, reset the country, get it right, let Trump do what he has to do. And then after that, the next election, we need young, fresh blood that understands what's going on. Because listen, we can't keep trying to elect people well into their years.
What I like, though, with Trump is he's not this country like my other half, what Liz and I were discussing about the other night, was that Trump is a businessman. He's not a politician. And this country needs a businessman to run it, not a lawyer and somebody that addressed law school. you can have those people as a part of your cabinet for legal opinions and advice. So operating the national debt and running this country as a business, which I feel should be ran in that light or that way, it would be economically feasible for these because he can address the finances around the world and how to utilize this country's finances and other countries' finances in retrospects to eliminate wars and support this country, like the various things that he imposed on China and Iran in regards to winning their respect. You take their money away from them their abilities to support their country.
I like that he runs it like a business person because, yes, one part of the government that people always overlook is the money being spent, period, and who's accountable.
That's right.
It's our money.
That's exactly
just spending
right.
it frivolously.
And this clown we got in office
bullshit
right now is spending it like water.
Manuel, you've been silent over there, munching the M&Ms.
Because I want to munch the M&Ms. I apologize.
You got anything to add to this at all? I know you do.
I do. But the 2-term thing was, I had to refresh. It's in the Constitution. You only get 2.
No, it is.
The only way you can get more than 8 years is if you're doing a succession, like Kennedy getting shot, and the only reason this amendment exists is because FDR went 4 terms, 33 to 45.
Okay.
So Trump's only limited to 4 years.
Yeah, that's been standard procedure with that. But I was heard him discussing such as, like you just said, other ways of interferences occurring to the president and his abilities to perform his job.
No, there may
so
be,
that window's open. It may be that he has to go to court or something in order to get it done.
But I'm assuming it would be like a world war that they're involved in that interferes with the term limits, something like that maybe. Then I can see them keeping him in office.
Yeah, that's...
well, if some kind
of catastrophic thing.
Something we would have to deep dive on. Because I personally don't know. I heard rumblings of that. I have, and I heard it during Obama's administration. But I have no idea how the 3rd term would ever be enacted or approved.
I have trouble. I attempted to look some of this up, and
we may have to.
I had trouble finding that information in regards to that issue of him being able to run for a 3rd term. And right now, we can thank God that he had the monetary background and to be able to fight off the Democratic Party. They went after him for every possible way that they could in order to get him out. And can you imagine if we had another politician that came in that they attacked in this format? He would not be able to afford to run for office.
It'd be done.
And we would be under the Democratic control.
Well, it looks like we're going to have Trump for president again, unless Gavin Newsom steps in somehow.
Well, one of the other interesting things is we can research, too. I had heard that the Democratic Party and Biden had been flying illegals in from other countries and having them sign voter, as giving them American IDs and having them sign voting forms.
I heard that, actually. And since you said that, let's ask this. I'm going to ask this last question because we're already going over 2 hours here.
Jesus Christ.
So, and this is going to be important. It's coming up. Should we have people present IDs to vote?
I'm
dumbass
very...
question.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's a question still in contention. I don't know why. It's still being contested. I have no idea why. I'm throwing it out there. Give me your dumbass opinion.
I did. It's a dumb question to ask. You got to know who they got to know who you are.
Elaborate.
No, that's it. You need your ID.
So in other words, you support it.
You need your ID. It's a stupid question. Yeah. They say the only argument I keep hearing is it disenfranchises people from voting because they can't get IDs, which I don't understand that either. Because
You hear
people
that
get
from
ID.
you hear that from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, people get IDs. I've seen it.
You're right.
I've even seen them stand in line.
Now, they may not be getting
vote.
driver's licenses if they can't drive, but everybody can
get a state
ID.
ID. Yeah, that's all they want. So, yeah.
What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, if you've got the proof that you're an American citizen, show an ID. But coming out of Silicon Valley and the workforce there are tens of thousands of people that came into this country illegally that got false IDs in San Jose.
Fair enough.
And that's good enough to vote too.
But
because a lot of those things pass.
But listen, I'm going to answer my own stupid question.
Please.
And this is just beating the drum because everybody says, but it's true. You can't get prescription without it. You can't see a doctor without it.
Can't drive without it.
You can't get into an airplane without it. Hell, you can't even take a train without it. So why is it okay for these things? Somehow this doesn't disenfranchise anybody. When it comes to voting, all of a sudden everyone's disenfranchised.
I know. And then if
that's the simple answer to that question is the Democratic Party's pushing that so that they can get support from all the illegals that they dumped into this country.
Of course. And that is the obvious answer. The underlying truth of it all, but still the statement is ridiculous because like Manuel said, it disenfranchises people, as they say, but they can't prove how it does so when you need an ID to do every other thing in America.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even, okay.
You can't drink.
In some cases, you can't even get into a concert without it, right? You may have your tickets, but they still want to see your ID sometimes.
You can't even open a bank account without
You can't buy a gun, and you can't buy any alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't get into a bar.
No. It's stupid to think that this disenfranchises people.
And California's streamlining it because now they're going to take the passport and the license and the state ID and make it one. That's that real ID thing.
Yeah, I already got my real ID.
I don't know when that starts. I'm still on the old license.
Well, that's what I've got. I've got a real ID.
Yeah, I do too.
That real ID is only good for certain areas. You can go to Canada, you can go to Mexico and Hawaii.
But you still need the actual passport if you go.
If you're going to Europe, you still
to leave
need
the
a
actual
passport.
country. Yeah.
So it's
like
pointless
overseas
then?
to Europe, you need the actual passport.
So it's a stupid ID.
No, it isn't because even within the United States, if you don't have a real ID, that you can't board a plane.
So real ID is all 50 states?
Yeah, I believe
No
so.
shit. God, I gotta get on that.
I believe it is.
Is what? What were we saying? I missed it.
Oh, I was asking if it's all 50 states going to have the real ID, or is it? Because I only know about. California.
It's nationwide.
Oh, it's nationwide.
Yes.
You can't board a plane without it. So if you wanted to fly from here to Nashville for a vacation, you can't if you don't have a real ID.
Yeah, and if you want to fly to just certain places out of the continental limits of the United
gotta get
States,
on
like
that.
Hawaii, Canada, Mexico,
Yes.
you can do that.
I gotta get on that. Then.
So in
But
conclusion,
I'd be afraid to go to Mexico and show them my ID and not be able to get back into the country without a real ID
That's
because
funny.
I think that's phony.
Yeah, because it's.
So in conclusion, we fact check everybody. Trump hasn't lied as much as they all said. He may embellish, but he didn't lie. And then we have found that Biden actually lied more than Trump supposedly did. And that, well, I guess vote Trump, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's sounds like a winner to me.
Or is RFK going to come at it?
You know, that's interesting. Here's my take on him. I like the guy, but he's not a communicator. And unfortunately, it's just like the job market. You've got to fit and you've got to impress. And him as a world leader is not impressive. He has a vocal issue, and I don't know what that is, but when he speaks, he has something wrong with his throat.
Son of a bitch. Spasmodic dysphonia.
But it's more than asthmatic.
No, it's called spasmodic. Spasmodic.
Son of a bitch.
What does it do? It has something to do with his vocal cords?
Yeah, it's got something to do with
the vocal cords just continue to spasm, and it sounds like you're gargling.
Yeah. So when you listen,
and if it's severe, you just can't talk.
Yeah, he's a step above him. He doesn't have a mental disarrangement.
No, he doesn't.
But he's
no, I hear what you're saying.
But he's got a communication problem.
Yeah, no, he's intelligent.
And
but
we need somebody that can speak the English language proficiently and communicate proficiently.
Oh, I'm totally gonna.
How dare you, Rick? How dare you want someone who could communicate? But you got to admit, RFK is a smart guy. RFK is an intelligent individual. He's very smart. He's not stupid.
No.
And when he makes statements, he does back them up. He's still a Democrat. If you want to be hard party line type of person, regardless, but he's not dumb. I think he should have been the guy that the Democratic Party would have backed, but you can't because traditionally you back the standing president, right?
Well, you hear pros and cons on him, but Trump and the
There's pros and
Republican
cons,
Party is saying that he is more liberal than Biden and a lot of people in Congress.
Well, he's kind of the dark horse right now. I think he's slowly gaining more support. I don't know how much impact he's going to ultimately have, just because they won't even let him debate. If he did, that'd be quite honest. It'd be very interesting. I think if we're smart as RFK is, though, Trump would still shut him down.
Yeah.
In plain, simple English, he would just shut him down.
Yeah,
he's too charismatic.
I don't think
spasmodic dysphonia.
That's what it's called.
That's what it's called. Neurological disorder affecting the voice and muscles. Okay, that's what it's called. Okay.
Huh. Well, let's.
Did you say mental too?
No, the
neurological.
It's the brain. Oh God, I gotta look back. I had it.
Something to do with the vocal cords.
Well, I got that part, but he said something to do with neurological.
Okay, I was skimming, but we'll go through. Okay, the neurological disorder that affects the voice muscles and the larynx, causing involuntary spasms. These spasms make the voice sound strained, hoarse, shaky. It's a rare condition, and the exact cause is not well understood. It can significantly impact communication, but various treatments,
just as Rick said,
including Botox injections. So I guess steroids, I guess.
That's funny.
Into the vocal cords can help manage the symptoms to some extent. Kennedy has been open about the condition, which he has lived with for many years.
Oh, so there you go. Rick was right. We need a communicator.
Yeah, we don't need a guy the whole time.
And I do find it hard to understand him. I do. Like he has points, but it's like it's really hard to kind of make out what he's saying.
Put him in perspective.
Yeah, you're right. We do need that. I mean that right there could be what holds him back in and of itself, right?
I would think so. I mean, when you go to visit the other heads of state that don't have any mental issues, communication issues, and are very knowledgeable of why they're there and what they're going to present to the world, and you introduce somebody from this country that is mentally deranged, not saying that he is, but as an example, they've got to be neurologically sound and being able to communicate.
Well,
you've got to lead by impression.
It would be when we get laughed at more, then we would totally vote for him, because then we'd go from that to a guy that can't talk.
I was just going to. I was just actually going to say something like that. All I know is
what a way to go down the hill.
We can't do another 4 years of Biden. Period.
No.
Period. That's been proven.
I think what remains to be seen is just what at this point is going to happen, because he doesn't seem. This debate was an excellent opportunity for the Republican Party to take advantage or expose the news media and the Democratic Party for covering it up for the last 4 years and lying to the American people.
It's evident that whatever cocktail they have to keep them going, they're running low on.
Yes,
okay?
Absolutely.
Like I said, he's a robot with a glitch at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm going to end it here, guys, because I think we all agree we don't need another Biden. And I think we dispelled the myth of how Trump is a pathological liar with a bunch of facts that we already just read today.
What?
And there's a lot
did you
more.
Just say?
Dispelled the myth that Trump is a pathological liar.
Okay. All right. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry.
Because we just read a bunch of facts that support that.
I'm fading. I apologize.
Don't worry about it. Anyway, that's that. Here's to a better America.